It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dennis Joseph Leonard, the president and CEO of Delta Dental of Massachusetts. He had been president of Delta Dental Massachusetts since 2011. Prior to that, he served in many senior leadership roles such as chief sales officer, regional president, and vice president of sales and marketing. Delta Dental is the largest dental insurer in Massachusetts, serving over 2.2 million members. Mr. Leonard has over 38 years of experience in the healthcare industry, including 16 years with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. He currently sits on the board of 7 institutions: Merrimack College, North Andover, Massachusetts; Everett Cooperative Bank, Family Service of Greater Boston, president of the board; Associated Industries of Massachusetts, AIM treasurer and member of the executive committee, the New England Council Executive Committee, Massachusetts Association of Health Plans, Delta Dental Plans Association. Also served on the transition team for Governor Charlie Baker. Mr. Leonard was elected to 5 terms on the Everett City Council, presiding as president in 1985. He is a graduate of Merrimack College with a B.A. degree in political science. He has also earned his M.B.A. from Northeastern University. Great to have you on the show. How come you weren't on the board of the Patriots? I figured.
I can tell you this, Dr. Farron. The people around Delta Dental, or anywhere for that matter, know that I'm probably the number one New England Patriot fan in this area, certainly within our company. Although I have good company with the 3 or 4 other guys that we talk shop with. And the Patriots are kind of a religion here. And we all want Tom Brady. People say everything they want. We do want Tom Brady to win the Super Bowl.
All right. And his coach used to be our coach out here in Arizona Cardinals.
That's right. Yeah, Bruce Arians is a great guy. Yeah, terrific guy.
Yeah, he's a great man. Gosh, I wonder if Belichick regrets not signing him on for another one.
I think so. I think there's a big debate here in Massachusetts. Who is more responsible for the Super Bowls over the years, Bill Belichick or Tom Brady? I've always said Tom Brady, so I'm in that camp from day one. But you can see, as soon as he left, we went from 13-3 to 7-9. So I'm in the camp of Tom Brady for sure.
So I noticed when I was getting ready for this, there's a lot of people confused between Delta Dental versus DentaQuest versus Great Dental Plans. Are those all brands under your hat?
Pretty much, Dr. Farron. So DentaQuest was founded many years ago in 2002. And the reason it was founded is we were doing very well in Massachusetts, and we wanted to extend beyond the borders and take what we were doing really well in Massachusetts and go outside of Mass. So we've diversified significantly. When I first started the company in April of 2000, we had about 1.7 million members and basically one product with one network. And it was doing really well. But our CEO at the time had a vision of improving oral health across the entire country. So he really decided that he wanted to do something that could really take us all across the United States. And we can't do that with the Delta brand. As you know, the franchise is limited. You can't have more than one Delta competing for business within a state. So we use the DentaQuest brand to go out and go into not only other states, but other lines of business, in particular government business. We are the largest Medicaid dental carrier in the entire country with over 30 million members. States like Massachusetts, Texas, Colorado, just examples of where we've got a piece of that business, or in some cases, the entire state like Massachusetts. So the DentaQuest name came as an offshoot, knowing that we can't use Delta Dental outside of Massachusetts. So it's really Delta Dental within Mass, and then outside the other 49 states, we're known as DentaQuest.
And we had another Delta Dental CEO. I love the guy, Joseph Nagel. And that's kind of what he was saying when he started Chusky, a new product line.
Absolutely. In fact, Joe Nagel is a good friend, and he just retired about a year ago. He had the helm of Delta Dental, CEO of Rhode Island for many years, and has done some wonderful things in that state. He's now succeeded by a great guy who he groomed, a gentleman by the name of Joe Peroni, who I know his father was, I think, an orthodontist. So he's been there for a long time. And Delta Dental of Rhode Island is in good hands. But you're right. They had a similar situation. Rhode Island's a relatively small state. They were doing really well there. And they needed to expand to grow their revenue. As you well know, if you're not growing, you're dying. So to simply maintain status quo is really not a good business model. So many of the Deltas are looking to do things that are not branded in the Delta, going out of their own state, their own comfort zone, so to speak, and trying different ways to generate revenue, all pretty much similar to the dental. They're not going outside the dental space, but they're looking at creative ways to drive revenue where they're really limited to their state or their region. Because we have 30 CEOs, Dr. Farron, across the country. So Michigan, for example, has several states, Indiana, Ohio, et cetera. And then there's the other group of us that have single states like Virginia, Massachusetts, where there's one CEO, one state. So in reality, we're all facing the same challenges.
And is it kind of bizarre working or not bizarre, but completely different when you're a nonprofit private company as opposed to say Delta was say it was publicly traded on the NASDAQ?
Yeah, I think that's really what separates us. I mean, Delta Dental of Massachusetts was founded back in 1966, and the reason it was founded was because dentists were struggling when they didn't know what they were going to get from their patients. Not very many people had credit cards at that back in 1966. And my own father, who was a dentist for 35 years in the town that I grew up in, would do a service, and someone would pay, if you had a crown, they might pay you $10 a week for the next several weeks. So the reason Delta was founded is dentists got together and they basically said, we want ease and certainty of payment. And that's the phrase that was built into the legislation back then, ease and certainty of payment. The dentists basically wanted to know that they were going to get paid, and they wanted to know how much they were going to get paid. So back in 1966, Delta Dental of Massachusetts was found, and the dentist decided to give a 5% discount to Delta in return for having that ease and certainty of payment. That has since gone away. But again, times have changed significantly. And in those days, dentists were really struggling. Back then, you can imagine some people. I grew up in a town where I had friends where there were 15 kids in the family, and to try to afford dental care was really difficult. And I think it put a strain on dentists who never knew where the next dollar was coming from. There were some, I'm sure, that were able to pay up front, but for many dentists, they just had to be reasonable, and they had to take some compassion on people and put them on payment plans. But that was really kind of the genesis of Delta, to help the dentists out and to basically say, you should know exactly what you're going to get paid for when you do a crown or any procedure, and you should get paid in a timely manner. Back then, 30 days payment was kind of a big deal. Right? Now we're all averaging 3 and 4 days or less in some instances. But back then, the marketplace was completely different.
With dentistry's, the highest cost is the cost of the dentist, and the ADA says average overhead 65%. So the dentist cost about 35% or a third. But next biggest cost is labor. And when Obama was talking about Obamacare and the Affordable Health Care Act, so many people were begging that you do something to streamline the paperwork cost, the claims cost. Lots of economists were saying that 30% of the cost of the industry was shuffling. I know in my dental office at Today's Dental right here in Phoenix, we still have to physically call. We have to have a human labor call every single patient with a claim. And I'm not talking about just Delta. I'm talking about Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I always feel sorry for Delta, because when anybody talks about dental insurance and dentistry, they just say Delta, and the example could have been Blue Cross and Blue Shield or Aetna or Prudential, but Delta Dental is just synonymous with dental insurance to dentist. But it seems like with a smartphone, the app, if you came in my office and I said, "Oh, dentist, did you bring your paperwork?" and you could just show me the app on your phone, I could scan it. There you are, everything. Do you see fintech automating this whole process to reduce our labor cost?
I really do. And obviously some of the larger carriers in healthcare, for example, I can remember, Dr. Farron, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I read an article in the Wall Street Journal that United Healthcare on the medical insurance side was investing over $1 billion in technology to make things smoother for providers and for their members and for their clients. So that transition continues to escalate today. And I think we're all looking for ways to make things faster, better, cheaper, but really more convenient for the dental office. I go back to my father's office, and he passed away in 2007, but he never used a computer in his office. Everything, if you were to go in there today, and the woman who bought his practice, he has cards, physical handwritten cards from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s that he hand wrote every single procedure down, and it really stayed there. Everything was paper. So we've evolved tremendously, and the pace of that change is really very, very rapid. So we're constantly looking at ways to make it easier. And one of the things that we've kind of accelerated past people going online, with their laptop, and we're doing everything on the mobile phone to make it really easy for people, whether they want to find a dentist or they want to check their claims to see, how much money I have left with my calendar year max, or I just want to, check on my appointment. So everything is moving towards the cell phone. Now, I am certainly not a futurist. I can't predict how fast it's going to happen, but I can tell you that everything that we're doing, and I get together with my other 29 CEOs quite frequently, everything we're doing is for that future state where we're trying to make things easy for everyone, not just the providers, but the clients and the members. And they seem to really be embracing it. And there will always be those dentists that they just feel more comfortable going to the bank. They feel more comfortable mailing there, like my father, and again, I think there are still people like that out there who just say, I'm just comfortable getting a check. They don't want electronic funds transfer. They just want a check every week. It just feels better to them. So I think over time, the acceptance of dentists and the front office staff is going to be unanimous, and that technology is really going to make things easier for everyone.
So, a question someone just posted about Delta Dental Massachusetts today. They said, "Hi, I'm a Delta Dental Massachusetts premier and EPO provider. I found a practice closed to the state border where I will be seeing both Delta Dental Massachusetts and Northeast Delta Dental. Do I have to credential myself in Northeast Delta Dental? I called Dental of Massachusetts. They informed me that all depends upon the member insurance. As long as the patient is in Premier or EPO plan, whether they are part of Northeast Delta Dental or Delta Dental of Rhode Island, I will be a network and can provide service. Given the above, I can't. But anyway, how would you answer that question?"
That's a good question, Dr. Farron. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. If I don't think so. I think it's where the dentist office is located. That I do know the answer to that question. I was thinking I thought the question had to do with there's an office in New Hampshire and an offer. But if the dentist office is located in Massachusetts, they're going to be seeing people that have Delta Dental in Massachusetts, but also they're going to be seeing patients that have Delta Dental of California and Pennsylvania. So they only have to get credentialed by one Delta Dental. The difference would be if they had a separate office in New Hampshire. I believe that question might be a little different answer, but for the most part, in the vast majority still are solo practitioners, it would only be Massachusetts, even though they'll see a lot of people because they are on the border of New Hampshire. They'll be seeing a lot of patients that do have Delta Dental of New Hampshire, which is Northeast Delta Dental. Northeast Delta Dental is Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. But they don't have to credential in all those states. Can you imagine how complex that would be if a dentist had to be credentialed with all 50 states of Delta Dental? That wouldn't make any sense at all.
So how was the Chusky project in Rhode Island? Is that going well? Was that a great diversification and business, or?
It seems to be going well. I don't have any numbers. I'd have to check in with their CEO, Joe Peroni.
Yeah, tell Joe to come back on the show and give us an update. That would be very fun.
It went from Joe Nagel to Joe Peroni, but I can't speak for him. But it would be great to have him on the show. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So Quest is one venture. Another one was Great Dental Plans?
No, actually, Dr. Farron, the Great Dental Plans was just an email address. That's more than anything else, because we are prohibited by Delta Dental from using. I can only use Delta Dental because I'm CEO of Delta Dental of Massachusetts. So for those employees that handled both the government business and Delta, that's why we came up with that email, Great Dental Plans, so that we didn't break that trademark infringement.
So you might want to explain to the viewers, first of all, a lot of our listeners, about a quarter of them are still in dental kindergarten school. So
Mhm.
this, they're not out yet, and so they kind of think of Delta Dental as like McDonald's or Burger King. It's all one company, owned by one. I don't think they understand the structure at all. Could you explain the structure to them?
Sure. And Delta Dental's, there are a lot of similarities. We are governed by the Delta Dental Plans Association, headquartered in Oak Brook, Illinois, and they basically are what I would call the Delta Police. They construct the rules of the road because we are in many ways a franchise. And just as if you owned a McDonald's franchise, McDonald's corporate wants to make sure that you're doing things the McDonald's way, that your uniforms look just like the uniforms on the McDonald's 5 miles down the road. So the Delta Dental Plans Association is really the governing body that makes sure that we have standards that go across state lines. And that's what keeps us all together. We are separate entities. For example, Delta Dental of Massachusetts has no corporate connection to Delta Dental of New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont, Northeast Delta Dental, but we do have very identical processing policies for claims. For example, we have the Delta Dental National Provider File that we share, so that we're able to get fees from all the other 49 states. So the DDPA, as we call it, the acronym for the Delta Dental Plans Association, really ties all 50 states together, but we are all separate entities.
And does that and they do a lot of investments. I've had several dental startup high tech deals, whether it be teledentistry or whatever, and a lot of them were funded, got their venture capital, private equity
Mhm.
money from
Yeah,
Delta
exactly.
Dental. Are those exciting times, kind of investing? I kind of think of Delta Dental as their technology as fintech. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a financial transaction. Have you had any exciting investments that are panning out?
Well, actually, it's a great question, Dr. Farron, because, and I don't want to confuse our audience with even more corporate jargon but our structure is such that our parents is Catalyst Institute. And the Catalyst Institute is basically involved in philanthropy and innovation and really doing a great job of looking for opportunities like that, for example, in the telehealth space. So we're just getting off the ground. The Innovation Center is just getting off the ground. So I don't have a lot to report at this point, but we're actively looking at companies in the oral health space. And again, because our mission is to improve the oral health of all, what we're trying to do is invest in companies that improve the efficiency, but more importantly, making sure that oral health is available to all Americans, especially in underserved areas. So when we look at a potential opportunity in telehealth, or for example, and you probably know this because you're on top of everything with this podcast, but when you look at some of the technology enhancements like silver diamine fluoride, for example, there's an opportunity potentially to invest there. And I can't get into who we're talking to. That would be inappropriate. But that's just an example of technologies that we want to look at because, again, we're not looking at it to turn a profit. We're looking at it as a way to meet our mission, which is to make sure that every single individual in this country has access to good oral health. And if we can do that by making it more accessible and more cost effective, and I give the example because I'm so fortunate to be surrounded by other dentists in our company and other people who truly understand the technology. I do a once a month similar interview, and it's called Pearls of Wisdom. And I interviewed a gentleman who we just brought on board, Dr. Jeremy Horst, who is brilliant. And he did his whole episode was talking about the innovations, the things that are going on in dentistry that, again, we're not looking at from a VC firm who would come in and say, how much money can I make from this? We're actually looking at it from the standpoint of how can we improve care, especially in underserved areas, by making it more efficient and more cost effective.
And what is the new investment vehicle called? You said
Well, actually, it's the Catalyst Institute. So they are our parent company. And
the
they
parent
have a
company
group
of
that
Delta Dental?
Delta Dental is is a subsidiary of the Catalyst, and they're our corporate parent, Catalyst
The
Institute.
Catalyst Institute?
Yes,
I,
and
I
they're the
would.
corporate parent for DentaQuest as well, Dr. Farron.
Wow, I
Yeah, so
did
it gets
not
more
know that.
complex all the time. I know. not on a
Wow.
deliberate basis.
Huh. Is it catalyst-institute.org?
Catalyst Institute, I can get you all that information after this, but it is the Catalyst Institute, correct.
Out of St.
And so that they're the parent company of both DentaQuest and Delta Dental of Massachusetts.
Huh. Yeah. Send me.
I will. And that's and it's a not-for-profit. Catalyst Institute is a not-for-profit entity. And again, we're looking for opportunities in the oral healthcare space to invest in companies that can really assist, because there are gaps, as you well know, in this country. If there weren't gaps, there wouldn't be a need for so many of these situations where the name escapes me, where we do where the dentists volunteer for a day in Virginia, for example. And I apologize, the name is escaping me for that where Delta Dental of Virginia and others get together, but it's really the Virginia Dental Association, and they go to rural parts of Virginia, and Missions of Mercy. Missions of Mercy they're across the country. They do wonderful work, but if oral health care was really working, we wouldn't need Missions of Mercy. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do to invest in innovative products and services, so that we don't need Missions of Mercy, because every single American has the opportunity to see a dentist and have a dental home. We really don't want, we always go through this thing where you want people to have a dental home, not just come to a remote parking lot somewhere and wait in a line for 8 hours to get a root canal. That's not ideal. It's better than not getting the root canal, but then they go back and they really don't have a primary care dentist. So everything that we're doing from that standpoint is to improve the oral health of all Americans. I mean, it's exciting stuff.
So, I found it very interesting when I lectured in China and had breakfast with the president of the Chinese Dental Association. Many of the dentists, the feedback was they thought that dental insurance was a moral hazard. They actually thought that, if Dennis wants to wake up every morning and have a root beer and a bowl of frosted sugar flakes and gets 5 cavities, that it's very important that dentists go out and have to get a job and pay for those to change his behavior. And they thought that it was subsidizing a moral hazard. And I found that very interesting. Of course, they eat a lot more clean than we do. Have you ever thought about dental insurance being a moral hazard?
I really haven't. I mean, I guess having been at Delta now, Delta Dental for over 20 years, I was really enamored with it. When I interviewed, I could sense with the individuals here that they knew that we weren't just an insurance company, but again, what really impressed me was the mission. And when your mission is nonprofit, but it's also, it's one thing to say you're a nonprofit. It's another thing to say, well, our mission is to improve the oral health of all. And we're going to invest everything that we do to make sure that everybody has access to affordable health care. So no, I can honestly say I've never looked at dental insurance in that way.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Dentistry has dental insurance and Delta Dental have really changed since I got out of school. So for the kids wondering what's going on, when I got out in '87, you would just submit your own fees, and Delta would pay 100% cleaning exams and X-rays, 80% root canals, fillings, and 50% of major crowns, bridges. And when did it really switch from that indemnity model to where you agreed on a statewide set of fees, which you would call a PPO?
Yeah, I think it really gets back to the inherent tension that exists between providers, the insurance company, and our clients. Because on the one side, you have providers who are always looking for us to, increase fees, because obviously their costs go up every year, and it's a challenge to run a dental office. On the other side, we have the tension of the clients who are always looking for us to, contract with dentists who are lower fee or higher quality. So that inherent tension hopefully produces a really good result. The other thing too is you need to have a balance. And I think one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Delta Dental is, we are never going to be the low cost provider. We are never going to be, the dental insurance company that pays the lowest fees. For the 20 years I've been there, we've been the top 1 or 2. We've never been third in terms of what we pay. But we're always getting pressure from clients who say, you've got to do a better job. These fees are the highest around. They love the fact that our network is 98% of all practicing dentists in Massachusetts. But the question about moving from an indemnity, which is really still popular, Dr. Farron, which is in Massachusetts, the indemnity product, that basically forms the out-of-network with our PPO product. And our clients really that's our biggest selling product, is the one that has the PPO base with the much larger premier network outside of it. It's called Delta Dental PPO Plus and PPO Plus Premier. So it combines the PPO network with our much larger premier network. For those people who don't, this better than most. People, for the most part, overwhelming numbers, love their dentist. So if you came out with a product that was 50% of the network in a PPO, most people would say, well, I'm not in that 50%. My dentist is in the other 50%, and I like him or I like her. She's been great to me. And it's really hard to convince people that they should move to, the PPO dentist to save a few dollars. And there is some saving. Usually the savings is between 15 and 20%. But for the most part, and I think this bodes well for all dentists, they really do a good job of maintaining their clients, their members, their patients. You very rarely see people say, yeah, that place was not a good place. I'm not going back. Dentists have worked really hard. We can get into the pandemic, but even before the pandemic, to make their clients feel as comfortable as possible. And again, having been in the industry for over 20 years now, I very rarely hear someone say, yeah, I really don't like my dentist. Can you recommend me to someone else? And the only time someone asks me for a recommendation generally is if their dentist retires or moves away, or if they move in and they move in from another part of the country and they don't know anyone. But for the most part, it's extremely rare. So the PPOs basically have come from corporations who are saying the cost is too high. In Massachusetts, our health insurance premiums are the highest in the country. We have some of the finest healthcare institutions in Massachusetts, especially in the greater Boston area, but that comes with a steep price. So what happens is that health insurance will always be number one when you're sitting down with the vice president of benefits at a company and he or she says, what's your cost of dental? They care first about medical, getting that off the table. Once they've secured the rates for their medical insurance, then they turn their attention to dental. And at that point, they're saying, okay, we just got a 12% increase on our medical, whose premiums are already significantly higher than Delta Dental, dental in particular. And that focus shifts to how can we shave a few points off on the dental side. So years ago, Premier was really the indemnity program when I started, and you're absolutely right. It was only 20 years ago when I started. Seems like a long time ago, but we sold almost exclusively an indemnity product. And now the product it's a little bit of both. I think it's a perfect, and most of the other deltas, by the way, have gone to this product, which is, the names are a little bit different, but it's basically the PPO product is wrapped around it with a much larger network so that everyone has an opportunity to see an in-network dentist for the most part.
So, so just to be clear, so you're the president and CEO of Delta Dental, but Stephen Pollock is the president and CEO of DentaQuest. They're both in Boston. Are they in the same building?
Well, yeah, until about March 12th, we were. In fact, I meet with Steve once a week. Steve Pollock is the CEO of DentaQuest. And as I mentioned, he has everything outside of Massachusetts. That's where our corporate headquarters is located. But he has those 30 million members that are part of DentaQuest and in the other really 49 states. But none of us have worked in Charlestown, unfortunately, since March 12th. And we look forward to the day when we can go back safely.
When you talked about higher quality, well, first of all, let's be upfront. It is not a natural relationship between dentists and insurance companies. They have the same patient. I tell the value chain of the dental industry. I mean, I grew up with a healthy one in Sonic Drive-In. My dad had 9 Sonic Drive-Ins, and the Rainbow Bread, making the bread, and the Meat Man, and everybody worked together, the whole value chain, trying to be faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost, better for the customers. But I noticed that dentistry it kind of comes in with a holier and thou religious background, and they're the king, and on their value chain, they don't play kindly with insurance and all kinds of things. But I look at everything: dentists, insurance, manufacturers, employers, community, divided by the patient. And I tell everybody, you keep one eye on the patient and one eye on cost, and you use your talent to drive down costs until Americans have the freedom to afford the dignity to keep their teeth. And I was at the last Delta Dental of Arizona meeting, and I watched this guy come up and say, I charge $1,300 for a crown, and every crown I do, I have to write it off. And he was all mad, and I'm just like, well, why don't you just tell the patient to pay $1,300? Why are you talking to this man? I mean, and it doesn't even register in his brain that. And then they talk about. I remember the ADA was going to come do the perfect insurance with what was it? Their
Patient direct. I think.
Yeah,
it is.
direct.
Patient direct.
Was it patient direct? Or
I'm
yeah,
trying to.
yeah, patient direct. Where
direct reimbursement. I'm sorry.
direct reimbursement.
Right.
And I just thought, well, there's no checks and balances. I thought absolute power corrupts absolutely, and if we don't need checks and balances, let's start by just getting rid of the Congress and the Supreme Court and go back to a king. You have to have competition, and competition brings out the best in people, even with the DSOs. A lot of my homies want me to just be the stand-up guy to punch DSOs all day, and I'm like, my gosh, it's before DSOs rolled into Arizona, and you fell off your bicycle on a Sunday and broke off your front tooth.
Right.
You could find a mermaid riding a unicorn twice before you found a dentist open, and now the DSOs got 7 to 7, 7 days a week, so the customer wins.
Right.
And so it's always going to be about the customer, and the dentists like you and me who have an M.B.A. I mean, that's a game changer in your mindset. I'll never think the same as that. I want to ask you another controversial question that will get me in trouble with all my homies, the dentists. You talked about they want higher quality. You have the data to know, well, if Howard, a general dentist, does the molar root canal, in 5 years, 10% will be extracted. But if an endodontist did it, in 5 years, only 5% would be extracted. And you could start playing with co-payments that said, well, if you're going to have this general dentist do the molar root canal, we're only going to subsidize this much money. But if you go to an endodontist, we'll subsidize more. And I see that playing out because right now, a lot of the DSOs are not letting their dentists do molar endo anymore because, these kids come out of school, they want to do a bunch of molar endo, then they change jobs every year. That's what millennials do, and they do it at Amazon, and they do it at Facebook and Uber and all these high-tech companies. No one can keep a millennial like the last generation. Like my mom's brother lives up the street. He got a job with Mobil Oil when he was 16 and retired when he was 65. And luckily, when he started, they had this little form. Do you want us to withhold 3% of your income for your retirement? And he said he thought about it for like 1 second. Thought, no, sure. And then at 65, it's like millions of dollars. But that was a whole different generation, not just here, but in Japan. But the new generation, they're like, we're going to start having kids 10 years later. We're going to do all these different jobs. So they move on. And then their root canals come back, fail, and then the dental office has to go pay an endodontist to retreat it. Same thing with implants. So they're and the insurances are following this, where they'll give reimbursement. Just I'm making up numbers. Say they'll give a general dentist $650 for a molar root canal, but they'll give an endodontist $1,200. So you're already subsidizing the specialist at a higher rate than the general dentist. Is that part of a drift towards quality?
What you've actually brought up several points, and I'll try to address each one of them, Dr. Farron. But the thing I've always said to people within Delta Dental is when you talk about quality, I've never met a dentist who said in a public setting, I'm just okay. You really should go to Dr. Farron because he's so much better than I am. And that's just human nature. We all think we're really good. I wouldn't want someone saying, well, I just looked at the 30 CEOs across the country and we rated you, number 29. And of course I'd be angry and say, wait a minute, am I that bad? So anytime an insurance company tries to label a provider as being, 5, whether you use a 543, 5 is the best, or gold, platinum, all those rating systems, they generate anger by the provider, the person who is being, because they just think everybody thinks they're doing a great job. No one thinks they're mediocre. That is, I think, is really the biggest challenge in trying to do any type of quality. So what we try to do is take out the emotions and basically say, we're only going to use data. I don't think it's constructive to label everybody as being in a class of, average, above average, really good. Those things are very dangerous. It's hard enough when you look at an institution. If you take a hospital and you say, this hospital is performing better than that, well, that's an institution. When you start doing it with dental offices, you're talking about a human being. You're saying Dennis Leonard, not that good. Howard Farron, really good. And that creates all kinds of problems. I know it's kind of looking at it from a more humanistic way, but we have to be really sensitive to dentists are going through a lot. The other issue that you are well aware of is that some dentists practice in areas where there are lower socioeconomic areas that cause issues that are difficult, and sometimes it's just harder. And then some of the cases that are presented are more difficult. So the challenge all dental carriers have is how do we approach that in a way that's fair to the individual? So, and I think the only way to do that is to use data and then not reveal that data until the dentist, he or she, has an opportunity to discuss it with us. And again, I'll give you a specific example. If you've got a dentist who is 2 standard deviations above the norm in terms of putting crowns in, a primary care dentist, the question shouldn't be, you're evil, we're coming after you. The first question any dental insurer that really cares about its providers should be asking is, what's driving that? Is there a reason that you're 2 standard deviations higher in terms of the number of crowns that you do? I've always talked within Delta Dental of my own primary care dentist who's done a great job. And I was in there about 2 years ago, and he said to me, Dennis, this tooth has, I think it's time for a crown. He said, you want to know how long I've been looking at it? And I said, I really have no idea. He said, I've been looking at this crown since 2004. And I was really impressed with him because he was looking after me as the patient. And I think the overwhelming majority of dentists do that. But if there are a handful of dentists that fall into that category that see that crack, maybe that person, some other dentist would have given me a crown in 2005 or 2006. So what we're trying to do is do it in such a way that it's sensitive to the dentist, but it's backed up by data. We don't want anyone's opinion to say, well, in my opinion, Dr. Farron is much better than Dr. Leonard. We want it to be based on sound evidence and data. And the other issue you brought up is millennials, because millennials are really looking for, they're doing everything on their cell phones, and everything is based on the experience that they have in the dental office. So much of it is almost fashioned after Yelp and some of these other, when you go into a restaurant and someone says, the restaurant was dirty, the waitress treated me poorly. And before you know it, everybody at the restaurant's flipping out trying to fix things. So we're living in that kind of a world. And that's what we're trying to avoid, where, you get one dentist or someone that wasn't happy, and all of a sudden the dentist reputation has got to, dentists now, some of them have social media managers that watch the website so that if anyone says something negative about their office, they want to make sure that they have a rebuttal or they refute what happened or what have you. So we are definitely living in a different world. I wish I could tell you that we had the best answer. I can tell you that we're working really hard to make sure that anything we do with quality is based only on the data. And I felt strongly, we met about this even a few weeks ago, that we give everybody an opportunity before we do anything. We wanted to give them the opportunity to say, here's why I'm 2 standard deviations higher than everybody else in my area. And we do restrict it to the area to try to take away that socioeconomic factor. So within a 3-digit zip code, if you're way above everybody else, what we want to do is have a conversation with that person and say, you're doing crowns at a rate that is significantly higher than your neighbor across the street and the other 13 dentists that are in your zip code. Why is that? But it's, again, it's a tough thing for sure. And we have to balance the needs of the providers with the needs of the clients. the client is always saying, why can't you send us to just the best dentist? Why don't you have a network where it's just the best dentist? And if that was possible, I think many of us would have accomplished that many years ago. I had a conversation with the head of a very large software company with over 50,000 employees. And he said to me years ago, he said, what's new? And this is a technology company. And all the employees at this company were online. They were very active. And I said to him, well, we'd like to, have a network or at least recognize those dentists that are really doing great quality. And he said, why aren't you doing that now? And that's probably 10 years ago. It's really challenging. And I think if you want to be fair to providers and you want to have a level playing field so that everybody understands the rules of the game, it's inherent on us to make sure that we have discussions with local organized dentistry, the Mass Dental Society, before we do anything, and make sure that we're at least approaching it in a fair way.
So, just again, this is just a little for the kids. So in dentistry, if you're in dental school, all these major companies like Delta, you said it had 30 CEOs, but their headquarters in Chicago, where the ADA is, and they usually will have. If they're really big, they also have another office in Washington D.C. where money talks and all that kind of stuff. Like Kim Keck, the president and CEO of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, they have 36 independent Blue Cross and Blue Shield. She's she's out of Chicago and has an office in Washington. And you said Delta Dental has 30 CEOs.
Correct.
Now, does that? But the ones in Chicago, are they also the ones in California? Are they the
No. Actually, let me be clear about that. The Delta Dental Plans Association, the Delta, we'll call them the Delta Police, although that's not really the appropriate because it almost gives the impression that they're always out looking to get us, and that's not the case at all. But they have their own CEO. So there's Wells Hutchinson is the Delta Dental Plans Association CEO, and he has a staff of about 30 people there. And they're the ones that make sure that all 50 states are playing by the same rules. So you have that level of consistency across the entire United States. So
and Wells is new. Wells is new. He just
Steve Olson just retired in January, and Wells was the chief legal counsel for the Delta Dental Plans Association. And we did do a nationwide search. I was part of that committee, and we had excellent candidates. But Wells, I think, is going to do a great job.
And they usually come out of that same law firm that does the law.
The last two, certainly, yeah. Steve Olson was there. And again, since I've been there, it's basically only been three. Since I started, it was Kim Volk, who was not an attorney. And then Steve Olson came, and he's been there for about 9 years. And then Wells started really mid-December.
Yeah. So take us through your product offering. So, let's pretend we're on Shark Tank, and everyone knows the smartest guy on Shark Tank is Mr. Wonderful because he's the bald man. The bald man is always the smartest man in the room. And so Mr. Wonderful is going to say, Dennis, why should I invest in Delta Dental? There's Blue Cross and Blue Shield. What's the difference between, there's a lot of competition in this industry. What's the difference between you and your competitors?
Well, I'd like to think it's, again, getting back, and we do have other, not very many, but I think being a not-for-profit allows us to do things that others can't do. And I'll give you an example of, and this isn't solely the reason why anyone would invest or decide on Delta Dental. But again, when I talk about our mission being to improve the oral health of all, our mission is not to drive profits through the roof. Our mission is to make sure that everything we do helps those that we serve. So from that standpoint, we have since really 1966, we've always been the one that has the most dentists. And that's something that, you would think that over time that would erode and people would say, well, no, I don't care where I go to, just send me to the cheapest doctor because I want to save a few dollars. And in my, previous comments about people really liking their dentists, we don't see that happening. So we still have the largest network in Massachusetts, 98%, and the other 2%, for the most part, are many of them are retired and have passed away. But for the most part, we have 98% of all those practicing in Massachusetts. That is our probably a number one advantage. Everything we do in terms of our benefit designs, the things that we do, I'll give you an example of why, because this does relate to the COVID and what we've done. And I'm really I'm impressed with Delta Dental of Massachusetts, and I'm impressed with the entire Delta system, because we've led the way, particularly with providers, because they took the hit before anyone else did in April and May for the most part. But when we're trying to figure out many ways, and we've actually given back almost $40 million in 2020 profit back to providers, members, and clients. Someone came up with a great idea one time, and I said, you know what? Another case of people being much smarter than me. They said, why don't we encourage dentists to go back to the dentist? We'll give them a sonic toothbrush if they go back and get a cleaning between July and September of 2020. And that was our way of trying to reinforce with our members that the dental offices were safe. Dentists have done a great job, and they've invested heavily to make sure that their offices are safe and infection-free. They've done an outstanding job, and we wanted to encourage people, because let's face it, dentists were under a revenue crunch. People to this day, the percentage is much lower, but to this day, they're really concerned about going into the dental office and getting infected. And I'm sure many of you and the students, if you ever watched that movie, If Saliva Were Red,
yes.
I don't know if you'd ever go back to a dentist office ever again. So that was just one example of some of the things that we did. And we spent over $3 million to encourage people to go back to the dentist. I don't think if you're anyone else, we were the only ones that did that. And I'm not suggesting that we're not without fault, but I would encourage all dental plans to do things like that to help in this really difficult time. And again, if we were for profit, we may not have said that. We may have taken a different approach. So I really do think our founding and our mission separates us more than anything else.
So let me summarize for Mr. Wonderful the fact that you have the most member dentists participating in the high 90s, and that you're nonprofit. What is your participation? You said.
We have 98% of all the dentists in Massachusetts that participate with our Dental Premier product. And our number one product, Dr. Farron, is that the PPO that has the wraparound larger network. Our PPO network is about 25% of all dentists, but the other 75% are under Premier for the most part. And that makes that product really nice.
So going back to comparing, differentiating yourself in the marketplace. So for Blue Cross Blue Shield, are they, you guys have more membership participation? Like approximately what percent would you say Blue Cross Blue Shield has?
I believe Blue Cross Blue Shield has approximately in the high 80s, and then it drops off from there. And we've got actually 2.4 million members in Massachusetts, and they're the number 2 carrier. And I don't have their latest numbers. We could get them for you, but they're about a 20% share, and we're at 40%. And then it drops off from there.
And then you said nonprofit. Does that mean Blue Cross and Blue Shield is for profit?
No, Blue Cross Blue Shield is the other not for profit. The rest are for profit. But again, I don't want to speculate on them. It's just, for the most part, it's basically what we hear in the marketplace. But and of course, it changes every year.
So this gentleman posts today on Dental Town. He says, I've been practicing dentistry 5 days a week for 14 years and can fill it in my back. I want to have a side hustle, but can't think of what I would do. I met a dentist that works at Delta Dental Dentist that approves or denies claims. How do I get a job like that? Is that a very common job? What would like each state have just like one dentist doing that, or 2 or 3, or?
Actually, that's a really good question, Dr. Farron. For the most part, you need consultants to work and help you with that UR process, and we're always looking for dentists who are willing to do that. I don't have the exact number. On average, it's about 3 to 4 to 5 dentists, and we also on our medic. There's another opportunity for dentists as well if they're interested in getting involved in that, and we have positions on the DentaQuest side that actually help us with when there are hearings done. For example, in Mass Health, if there's a provider that feels as though that the claim which was denied by Mass Health should have been approved, we need a dentist to go and represent the Mass Health. So there are opportunities, both full-time and part-time within the deltas across the country. But each we have a dental director that's full-time for the Dr. Linda Vidone does a great job for us.
Oh yeah, love her.
Yeah, she's full-time. But we also have dental consultants that help, because what you want to do is you want to always have a dentist talking to another dentist. You could probably confirm this thought. The thing that aggravates dentists more than anything else is picking up the phone and talking to someone that has not gone to dental school, and they're trying to tell the person why this claim shouldn't be paid. So there are opportunities there.
A reoccurring question, this one pops up on Dental Town today. It says, Delta Dental Premier Practice. I'm considering purchasing a practice in Indiana. It is nice, well-run practice that checks off most of the boxes I'm looking for. The main issue I have is that the selling doctor is Delta Premier only, and that is about half of the practice collections. I believe Delta has fully phased out Delta Premier in Indiana. Can someone confirm my assumption that new dentists cannot be Delta Premier only? Also, does someone have any experience of what the average reimbursement percent difference is between Delta Premier and PPO in Indiana? And that question comes up all the time. Maybe you're an associate and you go get a job at a practice, but the owner doctor is Premier, but the new kid can only get on the PPO. But so tell us the difference between the Delta Premier and the PPO, and what to think in those types of situations.
And again, each state has the opportunity. That's one area where the states have some discretion in how they do that. But the difference between a Premier and a PPO, generally the Premier network, obviously, because of the higher reimbursement, is going to be larger than the PPO. And it generally, on a state by state, it averages about 20% differential for fees on a PPO versus a Premier. And obviously, that's why the Premier is so popular. I don't think, and again, I don't want to speak to Indiana on this one, but I'm not aware of any states that say that you cannot be Premier. Some, I believe, are saying you have to join both, but I don't know of any state, unless that's something recent, that says you cannot be Premier. Some states are saying when you join, if you want to join, you have to join the PPO and Premier, but I'm not aware of any state that precludes you from being part of Premier.
Very, very interesting. So what, another issue, and I hate to, I don't want to be the bad guy who knows bringing up questions, but
No,
I'm just,
quite all right.
Dental Town. There was a big issue about, when COVID came out, about PPE fees, and, the dentist wanted to do a surcharge, and, the thing I love about humans is people don't stop to realize that the reason we can be aware of our own existence and have natural intelligence means that we're able to disconnect from the present, like your dog and cat is just stuck in the present at all times. And once you disconnect to not be in the present, you can think anything, you can justify anything. I mean, my two older sisters are Catholic nuns, and some of the stuff they think is just like, wow. And so my deal is humans can rationalize anything. So the COVID comes out, the PPE fee, and now they want a separate PPE fee, and that was very emotional and traumatizing. What were your thoughts on all that?
Well, I go back to what I said earlier. I'm really proud of not only the Delta of Massachusetts response to COVID, especially with providers, but also nationwide. The Delta plans across the country were some of the first to offer claims advance programs to practices that were really struggling and needed cash to get over the hump. I do think that the PPE, Massachusetts paid an additional $10 from June through September of 2020 to help dentists get over the hump, because there were issues associated with obtaining it. And again, as you well know, as an M.B.A, when the supply is down, the price goes up. So we were very cognizant of that. And for every dental office visit between June and September, we paid another $10 because the price, some of them were getting gouged. And we also did a $2 million donation to the Mass Dental Society. And the Mass Dental Society fund, they were trying to raise $3 million, and we gave $2 million of that to them. And all of that money really went to PPE. So we felt the pain significantly, and we wanted to do our fair share. And like I said, we've given over $40 million, a lot of it to providers, some of it to members, and some of it to clients, because we have to be fair. But the lion's share has been with providers, and we're really proud of that.
So here's a question specifically for Delta Dental Massachusetts on Delta Town. I would like to start a conversation on what Delta Dental is trying to do in Massachusetts. They are forcing us to sign onto their PPO plan, and if we want to participate in the Premier plan, if we sign up, then we are forced to accept their PPO fees, which are 25 to 35% less. If we do not sign up, they will send letters to all our patients urging them to find someone on their list. Any payments to patients who stay will go to the patient, not us. No predeterminations will come to us. We are also forced to refer within their network. There's much as more. Is anyone concerned about this? Well, first of all, what do you think about this dentist in Massachusetts' perception of what you're doing? Like you're saying, they're forcing us to sign on their PPO, et cetera. But what did you think of that question, and how would you respond to that?
Yeah, sure. And we want to be as transparent as possible. I think one of the hallmarks of being a not-for-profit player is being as transparent as possible, obviously. But the other issue is we want to be upfront with people. We want to have conversations. We don't want to get involved in, Facebook attacks and all that other stuff. And, I talked with many of the other CEOs, and sometimes people resort to that. They go on Facebook and say, Delta Dental's evil. Are there issues there? And it's a very small minority. But for the most part, that is not our goal. Our goal is to have conversations. We try to have a real open conversation with organized dentistry. And I know that, we've had our ups and downs there, but we show up. I think it's really important to show up and listen to providers. As I said, my father was a dentist, and so I know what he went through for 35 years. And I think we get credit for doing that because many other carriers will not engage with the dentist. And I think that's one of our hallmarks is we always show up and we take the questions and we try to come up with an answer, and we try to be fair. And we try to have that balance between clients, because the clients are always looking for better, faster, cheaper. We need a network that's lower cost. That's what they're asking us for. So sometimes those two needs collide, and there's no question about that. But I guarantee you that we're always open to listen to dentists. We're not trying to coerce them. They have options. They don't have to be a Delta Dental provider. We'd love them to be, and obviously we have a good network there. But for the most part, we'll continue to have healthy conversations. We'll continue to work it up with our relationship with organized dentistry, and that's probably the best way I can answer that question.
And again, humans can rationalize anything. Like it shocks me when I always hear Canadian dentists bragging on Dental Town that they have socialized medicine, and my mom had a quadruple bypass, and she didn't even have a copayment. And I'm like, so I mean, what are you even saying? You're a doctor of dental surgery. Are you saying that economics that started with Adam Smith, the Wealth of Nations 200 years ago, to today, to University of Chicago that has the most Nobel Prize winning economists, that we should just throw all that away? Why should your mom get a free bypass and have no skin in the game? If she doesn't have a copayment, she's not going to shop on prices. What if the bypass was $100,000 and you had a 10% copayment and she had to come out with 10 grand? Well, she'd get on the phone and start calling. Well, maybe I can drive over to the next province, or get out of this expensive Toronto and go over to Alberta, and it's only $80,000, and now I just saved $2,000 on my on my procedure. But it's kind of weird to be able to afford a pack of $10 cigarettes every day for 40 years, and then when you need the $100,000 cabbage coronary artery bypass graft, you expect it free, and your neighbors to all pick up the tab. I mean, insurance just shows the narcissism of humans, and I want to point that out. That I think it was Sigmund Freud that said the pathology around the edges of man shows you what's possible for all normal people. Like you're not a murderer. I think only like 1% of people ever murder someone, but we've all been stuck in traffic and said, if that person cuts me off again, I'm gonna shoot him. I one time was so upset, I literally wished I had a cannon on the hood of my car where I could just hit a red button and blow the car up in front of me. So when people talk about some people being more, totally narcissistic, well, all humans are narcissistic. They only see everything from their own self-interest. And of course, all the customers want to eat gummy bears and get free dentistry. All the smokers want to smoke and get free bypasses. And trying to, and the importance we've learned in economics is that you have to have skin in the game. You have to have co-payments, and there's a lot of kids in dental school that don't realize the importance of co-payments, and don't even realize it's illegal. When I got out to school, when I got out here to Arizona, I can't tell you how heartbroken I was. One of the nicest, sweetest dentists I know, and his brother was a dentist. Just two great people, and you see him at like Easter parties and things like that. He got the great idea that, well, if you're coming in and you need a crown and insurance only pay half, well, I'll just bill. We'll just do that crown, but I'll bill for the first molar and the second molar. Then they'll pay two halves, and then it won't cost you anything out of pocket. And of course, the insurance companies, they have algorithms, and they're like, okay, if 98% of the claims are one tooth dentistry, then here's a guy that has 90% of his crowns come two at a time. They went and did an audit, and where he was mailing insurance within the state. It was a business lawsuit or whatever, but where the claim crossed the county line, now it's mail fraud. That's how they got Al Capone. And that dude had to go to jail for 5 years. And so I wish you would talk to the kids in dental school that, yeah, when you go back home and your mom doesn't charge co-payments, I know she's your mom. I know she's a great lady. I love her too. But it's not legal, and you can get in big trouble. So will you talk about co-payments and why they're important and why you can't waive them? And do you see that story I told you? Have you ever seen stories like that?
We do have, there are always stories. Here's the good news. And when I remember having this conversation with the Mass Dental Society, the good news is, we have over 5,100 dentists in our network, Dr. Farron. And the number that fall into the category that you're concerned about doing things that are probably not above board, so to speak, is very, very tiny. And a lot of times people will say, well, that's like 5% of the dentists. And I said, no, it really isn't. It's much less than that. Of the 5,100 dentists we have practicing on our premier network in Massachusetts, we do on average only 40 chart audits a year. We have 2 people doing that. So they each have 20 dentists. That is a very, very small percentage. So for the most part, we've all heard those crazy stories, but the good news, both for providers and for their patients, is those numbers are just so tiny. It's a really small percentage.
So I can't believe we went over an hour, and I could talk to you for 40 days and 40 nights. But what are your biggest challenges right now? I mean, we're in the middle of this pandemic. It's February 3rd. Next month will be a 1-year anniversary of COVID-19. How did COVID impact you as Delta Dental Massachusetts? How did it affect the dental industry? And now I've had both vaccine doses. Have you been vaccinated yet?
No, we haven't. I unfortunately probably won't get it for another month or so, but it was really important to us that we advocate on behalf of Massachusetts dentists to be pushed up on that vaccination line, because better than most, the dentists are in a much more precarious situation in front of the member. I just had a routine physical last week. I never once took off my mask. But if you're a dentist, you've got a mask on, but you're a patient, you can't do dentistry on someone that has a mask on. So we thought it was really important. I think that COVID has brought out the best in Delta Dental for sure. We're proud of the fact that we've given over $40 million back to the community. And my number one priority is seeing our clients and our providers and our members through this difficult time, because COVID is not a calendar year. It's not limited to 2020. It's carrying over to 21. It may carry over to 2022. And the message I'd like to leave with all of our providers, who are basically the majority of people listening here are in the dental office, is that we're going to stand behind you. And we gave a significant amount of aid in 2020. We'll give more in 2021. And we'll continue to make sure that the communities that we serve get what they need. So that's really what our focus has been on for the past several months, and unfortunately, I don't think it's going away soon.
But back to the co-payments. I'll give you another one. A thing that scares dentists is the Delta Dental audit, and this guy's posted. I just received a letter from Delta Dental to do a quality control. What can I expect? And is this routine, or has something flagged them to someone out? I am a new startup, 3 years. But interesting, the next kid says they will ask for 10 Delta Dental charts and patient ledgers to make sure you are collecting patient portions and not discounting. They will also do a check to make sure you have an emergency med kit, mobile oxygen. They will check your sterilization protocol as well as charting protocol. Probably give a nod to HIPAA issues as well. So how many members did you say Delta has in Massachusetts?
2.4 million members in Massachusetts.
No,
as of
I mean
January.
provider dentist.
Provider dentists, there are about 5,150 providers in Massachusetts that are part of Delta Dental. So if you do the math, the number that are actually on that audit, and again, there are a lot of people that go on audit and a lot of it has to do with they're very busy and they may not have documented something. So the fact that someone is being audited isn't an admission of guilt, or it's not an indictment on the part of Delta Dental. That's just something has come up and we need to investigate it. In many cases, it's simply a question that the dentist was, just didn't document it, or needs a little bit of training, especially newer dentists, on how to better document the procedures. But again, it's not something that is that someone should be ultimately concerned about, unless, of course, something nefarious is going on, and those are very few.
And when it's very few, how long have you been the CEO of Delta Dental Massachusetts?
For 3 years. I've been president before then. The CEO title came 3 years ago.
But how long have you been with him as president, or any capacity?
About 9 years.
So in 9 years, how many dentists were nefarious and did something clearly illegal and gotten big trouble?
I would say out of the 5,100 on an annual basis, less than 10. That's an extraordinary number. Less than 10.
In 9 years.
Yeah. Well, that's on a per year basis.
Yeah. So that's.
But in some cases, but it's really, and again, I want to make it very clear. We don't actively pursue. There's an expectation that our clients want us to pursue fraud, waste, and abuse. But the level of fraud, waste, and abuse is really not that high.
Yeah.
It's extraordinarily low.
It's why I love dentists. I mean, even my kids picked up on it. I have 4 boys, and when they were little, they go, Dad, whenever we go to one of your dentist friends' house, they always have like a whole library of books they've read, and they know so much about everything. But when I go to my other friends, if their dad's not a dentist or a lawyer or a physician, they don't have any books. They don't have any. I mean, dentists are just. And then every time I meet the kids, like tonight, I'm agreed to podcast some Texas dental school business club or whatever, and I'm always humbled by the quality of the students that chose dentistry. I'm like, my God, I'm embarrassed. Like, do they know all of us old guys are a bunch of hillbillies? And I mean, they're just smarter and classier and better looking. And they're just, it just attracts the cream of the crop. And then if you go to Dental Town, we don't have this on the today's active topics. You got to go to leisure. Then we have 2 areas that are private, do not enter. One's politics, one's religion. And the politics, I mean, to hear their views and their concern for America, the country, I mean, they're just great people. I just love dentists. I just really do.
Yeah.
I always
well,
have.
Obviously, I have a soft spot because my father was a tremendous gentleman and he did a great job.
What was his name?
What's that?
What was his name?
Dennis Leonard, same exact name, Dennis J. Leonard. And he served, and he never turned anyone away and never charged someone that couldn't afford to pay. So he falls into that category. His best friends were dentists, and they were always at our house. So I echo exactly what you said. It's there. I've said this every day I've been at Delta Dental. Dentists wake up every day trying to do what's best for their patients, and I'm convinced of that.
Wow. So then are you the second then? Are you Dennis Joseph Leonard the second?
I never used this, but I'm the third. My grandfather, who came here from Ireland many years ago, he was Dennis J. Leonard the first, I guess, and I am the third.
So your dad was a junior or the second?
He was a junior, and he went to Korea and then came back and used the GI Bill to go to dental school. And he had a unique story because he went to dental school with 3 kids. And we actually didn't see him. We saw him once every 6 weeks for 4 years as he went to Seton Hall School of Dentistry while we grew up in Everett. And my mother was a registered nurse, so she worked, and we grew up in a 3-family house with my grandmother and grandfather on the 2nd floor and my aunt and uncle on the 3rd floor. And we were so happy when he finally came back, when I was in the sixth grade. And so third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, we saw him only once every 6 weeks for a weekend. And he'd come back to see us and my mother and then go back to school. So my mother and father sacrificed a lot for us to have the life that we had, and we're very appreciative.
That is just so cool. We have the exact same stories. My family, they all came from the Irish diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
They went through. They came 40 years before there even was an Ellis Island. And my grandfather was the first Howard Taft Ferran. But when he had my dad, he decided he didn't like President Taft anymore, so he changed my dad to Howard Eugene Ferran. And then I became Howard Eugene Ferran II, and it was so confusing that my dad started going by his middle name, Gene. Everybody started calling him Gene, and they just called me a mistake. And I don't know
That's
how.
a great story.
Oh my gosh, crazy
Yeah,
times.
we owe our grandparents and our parents so much. There's no question.
I know, and I try to put things in perspective. Like, I know you're not supposed to talk about religion, sex, politics, violence, and a lot of people say, political, we're so polarized. It's like compared to the Civil War 100 years ago, 150 years ago, where 1 in 30 died. This is nothing.
Right, exactly.
And when people are talking about the coronavirus, I was podcasting a Dennis from England. And I said, well, would you rather have England attacked by a virus or by Germans or other humans?
Nazi Germany.
I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
I'll take the being attacked by a virus or a fungus any day over than another human. It's when humans start killing each other when everything goes south for a long time. I just think these are challenging times, and what it means to me is that when everything's going easy, you can kind of sit back and coast. And sometimes I've coasted for years at a time. You're having babies or doing this. But when all of a sudden you wreck the car and there's a train wreck and a pandemic and all that, that's when the leaders rise to the occasion. And every military general says the first casualty of war is the battle plan, because once the shot goes off, 95% of the people forget everything they were trained and go dive in a ditch. And that's when the true leaders stand up. So if you're being stressed, it's time to rise the occasion. Just stand up, rise the occasion. And what I would wish all dentists would do is work better with their value chain. I mean, sure, dentists and dental insurance companies have natural competition and different factors. The dentist ones, if the dentist had it their way, Delta would pay $1 million for a crown cash. They'd come in on January 1st, do one crown and go home for a year. That's not real. That's not reality. So just work with your value chain. When I got out to Arizona, the first thing I did is I called the CEO of Delta Dental of Arizona. His name was Ed Judd.
Sure. And by the way, Alan Alfred is a great guy. He's a good friend of mine, doing a great job.
Yeah. Do you remember Ed Judd?
I don't. He was there before. He left before I got there.
Yeah, he was from Missouri, but I mean, I called him up. We'd go to lunch, and it's just so much better to work your value chain. In fact, dental insurance was the impetus for Heartland Dental. I mean, Rick Workman was a businessman, and he went to the Indiana insurance companies and said, where are you collecting claims or payments for insurance, but there's no providers? And he said, well, here's the top 10 cities. And Rick said, well, I'll open up a dental office in every one of those cities, but I'm going to need a cosign for some money and a $10 million loan later. And he was off and running. So working with your value chain, keeping the patients in mind. And when people say they want to drop all insurance and they don't want to deal with any insurance, how realistic is that? In Massachusetts, how many dentists do not participate in any dental insurance? What would that be?
It's a very small number. I can only speak to the Delta Dental, and for the most part, it's a handful of dentists. It's less than 5% for the most part, because again, Delta has the most. So if you look at what we have, there's less than 3% have made the decision not to align with any dental insurance company.
And for the young kids who have this fantasy that they're going to be insurance free and they're going to only do veneers on movie stars and famous people, then they go to Parsons, Kansas. And I'm like, where are all the movie stars in Parsons, Kansas? But what do these people that don't take any insurance, how would you describe that group? I mean, are they older? Are they high-tech implant cosmetic gurus? Or are they just a bunch of old school people? Who
Well, for
Or
the most part, I think for the most part, and we don't have any real data on this, but for the most part, what we see, it's the very affluent dentists who have decided not to facilitate, and they're in the affluent towns for the most part.
and then one other. Do you care if I keep you for just a couple more overtime questions, or
Sure.
do you got to
I've got
run?
about 2 minutes and I've got another
Okay.
phone call, but this has been
Okay.
great. I appreciate your time.
Last question. When Obamacare did the Affordable Health Care Act, it was pertaining to Medicare, which all 50 states have a different Medicare and a different name, like we out here in Arizona it's called Access, as opposed to Medicaid, which was one federal government
Mhm.
agency that everyone's grandma's on, everybody likes it, all that kind of stuff. Do you think the Affordable Health Care Act, instead of going through 50 individual states, it'd be a lot more simpler to run it through Medicare? I cannot believe how many people patients I met that were just trashing Obamacare, and I'm like, well, you're on Access. I know, and they had no idea that Access was. They don't know the distinction. But do you think it's a branding issue and a
You know,
confusion issue, Medicare versus Medicaid?
I really do. Well, I think from the Medicare standpoint, the Medicare Advantage people tend to be closer to commercial members versus the Medicaid. And what it really comes down to is reimbursement. For most dentists, that's the most important thing. It comes down to reimbursement. And that's the question. If we all switch to a Medicare Advantage, what would be the reimbursement? And I know I've talked to many dentists, Dr. Farron, who are really concerned that their numbers would fall if it was a Medicare Advantage. But I honestly don't know. It's speculation at this point.
All right, well, go take your phone call, and thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, have a great day.
Take care.